Carolyn Leavitt continues to prove she's remarkably bad at her job, something that shocks absolutely no one who's been paying attention. But what is surprising is who's finally calling her out: Joe Rogan. And not just for being incompetent, but for being criminally bad at her job. Rogan exposed her on his show for a serious violation she's been committing throughout this entire presidency. Once again, showing that for people like her, the cruelty is always the point. We're going to break down all of it. Leavitt's public humiliation and Rogan's unexpected takedown. But before we dive in, please take a moment to like this video, and if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel. It really helps support our work. Now, before we get into Rogan's remarks and the crime Leavitt's been called out for, let's start with someone who's been exposing her attacks on free speech from the beginning. Jasmine Crockett, right here.
The president has decided that he wants to shake down people as relates to the First Amendment, because he has filed not one lawsuit, not two lawsuits, but he has filed numerous lawsuits. He filed a lawsuit against the New York Times. He filed one against the Wall Street Journal, against CBS, against ABC, against the Des Moines Register. He is doing all of this because he wants to quash any speech that is not appreciative or lauding him, which is pretty much anything that's factual. So let's talk a few facts about these January 6 felons that should still be incarcerated because they went through the process, but because they were doing things on his behalf, of course, he wanted to let them go. So they released more than 1,000 people who participated in the insurrection on this government, many of whom had previous criminal records, like Mr. Theodore Mendenforth, who was convicted of predatory criminal sexual assault of a child, or Mr. Peter Schwartz, who had 38 prior convictions, including one where he beat his wife by repeatedly punching and biting her. Trump also pardoned Mr. David Daniel, who was convicted of production and possession of child pornography. Trump also pardoned Mr. Daniel Ball, who, quote, threw an explosive device that detonated upon at least 25 officers during the Capitol riot. He also had a record for, quote, domestic violence by strangulation. I'm not done. Trump also pardoned Mr. Andrew Taki, who sent nudes to an undercover law enforcement officer who was posing as a 15-year-old girl. Mr. Casey Hopkins also received a pardon from Trump, and Mr. Hopkins was convicted of forcible rape. According to court records, he, quote, had forcible intercourse with the victim, choked her to the point of impairing her vision, banged her head into a wall, and urinated into the victim's mouth as he humiliated her. These are the people that he decided to release in the streets of D.C. So if anybody does need to clean up D.C., I would agree it is this man, because he is the one that is causing half the crime that we have. Not only is he participating in the crime, but we know that he instigated the insurrection. And if I did say that I had one issue with the Biden-Harris administration, it is the fact that they did not move forward and make sure that this man was put where he should have been put. Because the last time I checked, as a criminal defense attorney, and Mr. Attorney General, you may have a different experience, but I never had a defendant that had 34 convictions for felonies and did not spend one day in jail.
We really need to stop letting Republicans pretend they care about free speech, because they absolutely don't. This should be something we call out every single day. They are the biggest hypocrites imaginable. They cry free speech when they create hate-filled group chats, spread racist slurs, or wear offensive costumes, and then act like they're the victims when people reject that behavior. No, you're not being silenced. You're just facing the consequences of being hateful, and society has every right to reject that. But somehow, the same people who cry about cancel culture are perfectly fine with Carolyn Leavitt banning respected outlets like the AP from the White House press pool just because they don't use her preferred propaganda terms. And worse, Donald Trump too has gone even further, weaponizing the power of the state to silence anyone who dares to disagree with him. If you call out a genocide, he'll threaten to lock you up. This administration keeps insisting it's transparent, but as Carolyn Leavitt made crystal clear right here, before we even get to Rogan's expose, all they really do is hide the truth.
You mentioned any construction project comes with changes. The president had initially said that this project wouldn't interfere with or touch the current structure. Now he says to do this properly, he realized that the East Wing had to be demolished. This is the people's house. Why not inform the public of that change and when it was decided that the East Wing would have to be demolished?
Look, again, with any construction project, changes come, and we have informed all of you. We've been keeping you apprised of this project. We've shown you the renderings, and if you look at the renderings, it's very clear the East Wing was going to be modernized. In fact, I said that in the briefing when we initially introduced this plan to all of you and to the public.
But modernized and tearing down are two different things.
Well, again, the plans changed when the president heard counsel from the architects and the construction companies who said that in order for this East Wing to be modern and beautiful for many, many years to come, for it to be a truly strong and stable structure, this phase one that we're now in was necessary. And the president wants to do right by the people's house. And so that's exactly what he's doing. It's going to be, again, like I said, much more stable, strong, secure, and more beautiful than ever once it's complete.
The White House literally tried to obstruct the view of the construction done on the East Wing. Not the construction, sorry, that is the wrong word. The ripping apart of the East Wing, their construction project that they're calling it, the big ugly ballroom. They tried to hide it. Carolyn Leavitt says this is the most transparent administration in history. Carolyn, I can see right through that. And so can Joe Rogan, who's now calling out Leavitt on his show for a crime that she's been committing. We've been covering it. I'm glad someone else is too. Joe Rogan slams crazy change to Trump press briefings. Joe Rogan has a new gripe with the Trump administration. Rogan was chatting with Oscar winner Billy Bob Thornton on Thursday's episode of the Joe Rogan Experience when he called out a crazy change that the president he endorsed has made to his daily press briefings. I think there's a lawsuit right now to make the Trump administration bring sign language back to people for those White House press briefings, Rogan said after his producer looked it up. Rogan questioned if there was any other time that sign language interpreters weren't included in the briefings. No, it says they stopped during the Trump administration. Rogan was told to, which he responded, "Oh, that's crazy." Why would they take that out? Why would you remove sign language? He went on, that's one thing that's happened over the last couple of decades is they actually do. When there's important information, they always have a signer there. The White House has indeed been embroiled in a legal battle with the National Association of the Deaf, which sued the administration for the omission. The Trump administration fired ALS interpreters in January. The association argued that the decision violates the Rehabilitation Act of 1973, resulting in discrimination by an executive agency. On Tuesday of this week, a judge ordered through temporary injunction that the administration immediately begin including interpreters in its briefings. Trump's not wanting to share a platform, as the judge put it, was not seen enough to halt the previously established common practice under Joe Biden. Given the nature of the programming at issue here, regularly scheduled briefings on critical topics implicating markets, medicine, militaries, and myriads of other issues, the court finds that denying deaf Americans access to the benefit of it presents a clear, present, and imminent harm, the judge declared in the ruling. Rogan expressed his support for that position, though he admitted he hadn't noticed the interpreters much before. Yeah, Joe, you didn't notice it, just like you didn't notice all the other hateful racist rhetoric pouring out of Donald Trump's campaign. It's because it never touched your life. When a multimillionaire like Joe Rogan, who's reportedly worth around $200 million, hears Trump ranting about tariffs, of course he's not thinking about grocery prices going up. He's not the one buying groceries. He doesn't shop for himself, and he doesn't have to worry about the cost of living. So naturally, he was surprised to find out there weren't interpreters or that ordinary people are struggling, because that's exactly what being MAGA is about. These people lack curiosity, empathy, and compassion. They only notice injustice when it hits them directly. It takes seeing people dragged from their cars and brutalized by ICE agents for them to suddenly realize, wait, maybe the Republicans are the bad guys? But by then, the damage is already done. Because with Trump and his circle, cruelty isn't a side effect, it's the whole point. Donald Trump is spending hundreds of millions on vanity projects like ballrooms, yet somehow there's no money for ASL interpreters? Of course not. Trump and Carolyn Leavitt don't want inclusion. They don't want transparency. They want people kept uninformed about what's happening because this administration is actively dismantling the government and selling it off piece by piece to billionaires like Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, Larry Ellison, and Peter Thiel. They want you to believe that government doesn't work for you. And right now, under them, it doesn't. This is the longest shutdown in U.S. history, not because of necessity, but because Republicans can't govern and Trump wants to bury the Epstein files. He wants chaos, because chaos convinces people to give up, to stop believing that collective power can fix anything. But it doesn't have to be that way. Government has worked before, and it can work again, just not under these corrupt, destructive leaders. As Representative Jasmine Crockett keeps reminding us, it's time to fight back with real, bold, structural change.
That it's their elected officials. We know when it comes to healthcare, whether we're talking about SNAP benefits, we know that we are fighting so much harder for the people that Republicans elected to represent them than the Republicans that were elected to represent them. And I just want people to remember this, because it seems like there was a bit of amnesia by the time we got to this last presidential. And right now we saw amazing results on November 4th, but it doesn't stop there. It can't stop there. As soon as you relax and believe that everything is all good, I am here to tell you that the Grim Reaper is lurking. And sadly enough, the Grim Reaper is the president and his minions at this point.
Does it concern you that it's not the SNAP benefits or even the ACA that might be the straw that breaks the camel's back, but instead the flight situation? You've seen the footage of Houston. You've heard about flights being reduced, chaos at the airports, coming to an airport near every American. Is that what's going to move the needle?
I personally believe it is. We know that this president definitely is good at setting certain records, and they're usually losing issues. He had the longest shutdown before, and as you opened up, you talked about the fact that we are sitting in now the longest. So he topped his old record. But when you look back at history, it was the air traffic controllers that were able to finally bring this thing to a halt last time. Now, what they did is they modified the law. Instead of allowing these federal workers to do what is best, not only for them, but best for the rest of federal workers, best for the rest of the country, they decided that they wanted to minimize their ability to organize in that same way so that they could not ultimately stop a shutdown going forward.
We can absolutely defeat these people because, first of all, they are fundamentally weak. And second, let's be real, they're complete failures. Carolyn Leavitt is a failure. Donald Trump is a failure. Stephen Miller is a failure. Let's call them what they are and talk about them that way without hesitation. That's exactly what we'll keep doing on this show. If you want to support that, make sure to hit the subscribe button, leave a like on this video, and if you made it all the way to the end, drop a blue heart in the comments. And until next time, I will see you soon.